Okay, vaccines have been a lot in the news lately. Vaccines are incredible because they've gotten rid of childhood diseases like measles and mumps and rubella, which has been fantastic because it saved lots of children's lives. However, recently, parents are choosing not to vaccinate their children because there have been some studies that say vaccinations are linked to autism. Their parents don't want their children to get autism, so they don't give their children the vaccines. So we are putting on an exemplar report for the grade 8s, Vaccines on Trial. And I am playing the role of Dr. Lahiri, who is the defense witness.
And I am Ms. Lackett. I will be the defense attorney in favor of vaccines.
I am Mr. Custer, and I am the prosecution trying to prove that vaccines are evil.
I am Dr. Castellano, and I am the prosecution witness.
And I'm Ms. Bowman. I've been selected as a jury member, and so I will be deciding between which side wins the case.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'd like you to meet baby Francine. Born full of life in 2010, weighing in at a completely healthy 7 pounds, she had all the promise that this world has to offer. Should have had an easy, fulfilling life. That is, until her parents, cruelly misled by the government, made the fateful choice to immunize her against routine diseases. The doctor, an extension of the government, injected into baby Francine's arms a concoction full of unimaginable, unthinkable ingredients that had been linked to a disorder known as autism. And baby Francine is now 5 years old, and she still brings joy to the world. But her life has been severely impacted by a disorder that forces her to experience difficulties in social interaction, delays in verbal and nonverbal communication, and an inability to break up repetitive behaviors. The link between vaccines and autism is clear, beyond a doubt, and well known. And today, I ask you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, to consider the plight of baby Francine and find that all vaccines are guilty. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, esteemed colleagues, students, and parents. You will have no doubt noticed that my opponent opened with some heavy dramatics. Heavy dramatics that you will not see from me, because my case, the case in defense of vaccines, rests on scientific data and fact alone. I'd like to open today with a trip back in time. The year, 1916. Less than 100 years ago. In that year, a deadly polio epidemic was ravaging the United States. Polio took the lives of more than 2,000 people in New York City alone that year. Across the rest of the United States in 1916, 6,000 more people died from polio, and still thousands more were left paralyzed from the disease. In that very same year, another disease, the measles, killed nearly 12,000 people in the United States. 75% of them younger than 5 years old. Throughout human history, many disease outbreaks, like polio, the measles, the mumps, yellow fever, and smallpox, needlessly killed hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children. Thanks to scientific research and the discovery of antibodies for these diseases, vaccines have been created that are administered to children in developing countries so that we will never again have to live in fear of contracting these deadly diseases. Thanks to vaccines, these once terrifying diseases have been all but eradicated. Now, I ask you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when modern medicine has invented vaccines that allow us to live in a world free from the horror of these diseases, the question is obvious. Why would anyone choose not to have their children vaccinated? Thank you.
The prosecution calls Dr. Castellano to the stand.
Hello, Dr. Castellano. Good to see you. Can you please tell the jury here about your experience and expertise as a scientist?
Yes, I graduated from Harvard University in 1990 with a PhD in chemical science, In my 25 years as a leading scientist in my field, I have conducted multiple studies analysing the link between infant vaccinations and autism.
Fantastic! Can you please tell us about some of your more noteworthy findings?
Well, in 1998, I worked with Dr. Andrew Wakefield on a study involving 12 children who were given MMR vaccinations. 8 of these children began to exhibit behavioural symptoms that were consistent with autism. These signs developed within 2 weeks of receiving the MMR vaccination.
Can you please elaborate on the MMR vaccination?
The MMR vaccine claims to immunise children from measles, mumps and rubella, but like any vaccine, it is comprised of actual live viruses. Of these diseases, more specific ingredients include amino acids, glutamine and hydrolyzed gelatin and fetal bovine serum.
Can you please tell us some more details about the dangers of any of these ingredients?
Well, fetal bovine serum is a byproduct of the meat industry. In simple terms, it is collected from dead cow fetuses at the slaughterhouse. Since it is low in antibodies, it can be used for cell development, but naturally, most people would be disgusted when they consider what has been injected into their veins.
Dead cow blood. Disgusting. Ugh. Are there any other disturbing ingredients found in vaccines that this jury should know about?
Yes. One very common preservative in vaccines is thimerosal. It is mainly used as an antifungal and antiseptic ingredient, but it is known to include very high levels of mercury. It can be very toxic, even fatal, if inhaled or ingested in certain combinations. It has led to severe poisoning in certain cases and is even responsible for some fatalities. Additionally, thimerosal is the #1 vaccine ingredient linked to the development of autism.
It sounds like vaccines can actually do more harm than good when you put it in that way. Can you please elaborate on the link between thimerosal and autism?
Well, due to its high mercury content, thimerosal is known to elevate mercury to a very dangerous level in babies. When combined with other vaccines, the infant immune system just cannot tolerate such an onslaught of activity. This explains the direct link between vaccines and autism.
Absolutely. Can you please tell me about the recent rise of autism diagnosis?
The rate has grown exponentially over the last few decades. In the 1970s, approximately 1 in 2,000 children had an autism spectrum disorder. Today, the Centre for Disease Control estimates that 1 in 158-year-olds in the United States now has an autism spectrum disorder.
Let me get this straight. That means autism rates have grown from 0.05% to 0.67%, a change of 0.62%. In your professional opinion, how do you explain this dramatic growth?
Without a doubt, today's devastating autism statistics can be explained by the prevalence of vaccinations as propagated by our government.
There you have it. Thank you, Dr. Castellano, for your testimony.
Dr. Castellano, as a member of the medical community, surely you must be able to remark on widely accepted medical practices.
Well, I suppose that no, the diphtheria vaccine is not administered to children.
Then there is no real reason to fear thimerosal being given to children, is that right?
I suppose that's right.
And without any evidence supporting the truth of the Wakefield study, and without any provable link between the ingredients in vaccines and autism, then you cannot definitively say that vaccines cause autism.
I suppose that's right.
Prosecution rests.
Thank you, Dr. Castellano. You may step down.
The defense calls Dr. Lahiri to the stand.
Good afternoon, Dr. Lahiri. What is your medical background and expertise?
I'm currently serving as medical epidemiologist at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, as the medical officer for the National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. I have an MD, I have an MPH, both from Yale University.
And can you start by telling us a little bit about how vaccines work?
Yes. Vaccines work to prime your immune system against future attacks by a particular disease. They are made from a killed, weakened, or partial version of the pathogen. When you get a vaccine, whatever version of the pathogen it contains is not strong or plentiful enough to make you sick, but it is enough for your immune system to generate antibodies against it. As a result, you gain future immunity against the disease without having gotten sick. If you're exposed to the pathogen again, your immune system will recognize it and be able to fight it off.
Thank you. Now, can you please tell us how effective vaccines have been once they are created and distributed to the public?
Yes. If you look at the history of any vaccine-preventable disease, you will virtually always see that the number of cases of the disease starts to drop when a vaccine is licensed. May I show a chart?
Absolutely.
Okay. Here's a chart showing the pattern for measles. And you can see that here were the cases with measles, and right about here the vaccine was licensed, and you can see it dropped right down, and it's almost eradicated. The same pattern is true of all vaccine-preventable diseases. It saved thousands and thousands of lives.
Thank you. Do vaccines cause autism?
No, absolutely not. This possibility was publicized after a 1998 paper by a British physician who claimed to have found evidence that the MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine was linked to autism. The potential link has been thoroughly explored. Study after study has found no such link, and the original 1998 study has been formally withdrawn by The Lancet, which had originally published it. Studies were also done regarding the possibility of a link between the preservative thimerosal, which is used in some vaccines, and autism, but again, no such link was found. It's likely that this misconception persists because of the coincidence of timing between early childhood vaccines and the first appearance of symptoms of autism, which means autism appears at about the same time when you get the vaccine, and that's more likely the reason the person thought there was some evidence.
If vaccines don't cause autism, what about other possible long-term health benefits, such as multiple sclerosis and diabetes?
Okay, well, all vaccines have possible side effects. Most, however, are mild and temporary. Adverse effects from vaccines are monitored thoroughly via multiple reporting systems, and there is no evidence whatsoever, no scientific evidence from these systems to support claims of any long-term health problems whatsoever.
Thank you, Dr. Lahiri, for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Dr. Lahiri, you mentioned the coincidence of the timing between early childhood vaccinations and the first appearance of symptoms of autism, yet multiple studies have clearly made the link between the substances in the vaccines and illnesses such as autism. Have they not?
Yes, but as I've mentioned, these so-called studies have been discredited because...
Let the record show that the witness has indeed answered in the affirmative. As a representative of the medical community, can you tell us how autism is caused or spread?
Well, autism spectrum disorders are thought to be a mutation in the gene that severely disrupts how the developing brain circuits organize themselves during a human's first years of life.
Yes. But how does somebody get autism?
Well, no one knows for sure, but there are certain risk factors that we are aware of that can increase an individual's chances to develop an ASD.
So, if you can't be sure how children develop an autism spectrum disorder, then how can you be so sure that vaccines are not a risk factor?
Well, scientifically, we've identified several risk factors, such as immune system irregularities in the parents, specific gene mutations,
But none of these have been proven to have a direct correlation to autism. They're just theories. Just as the correlation between vaccines and autism is a theory. Is that correct?
Well, not exactly.
Dr. Lahiri, you showed us a graph of the decline in diseases, such as the measles. You say that this decline is due to vaccines. But isn't it true that this decline can also be explained by a more health-conscious society with better hygiene and nutrition?
Improved hygiene and nutrition, among other factors, can certainly lower the incidence of some diseases. However, data documenting the number of cases of a disease before and after the introduction of a vaccine demonstrate that vaccines are overwhelmingly responsible for the large drops in disease rates.
Interesting. So you admit that hygiene and nutrition could in fact account for the reduction in diseases? Yes or no?
Yes, but it is one of many possible factors.
Thank you. Last question, Dr. Lahiri. Is it medically possible that vaccines could cause adverse side effects that we may not even know about yet, due to the relatively recent increase in vaccines and the boosters to those vaccines?
Is it medically possible? Well, many things are medically possible, but that doesn't mean that...
This is a yes or no question, Dr. Lahiri. Is it possible? Yes or no?
Yes, it is possible. However, it has been
Thank
proven
you,
that
Dr.
vaccines are
Lahiri.
safe.
That will be all. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what I'm about to show you may shock you. While I do not apologize for this message, since it is one that can save lives and change lives, I do, however, apologize for the manner in which I must send this message. Remember sweet, sweet baby Francine? The gleam in her eye, those adorable cheeks, the life full of promise. Can you imagine injecting this into that poor, sweet, innocent child? That is, believe it or not, dead cow blood. Well, the doctors who took that needle and put it into her arm, they could imagine that. Today we've heard expert testimony from a doctor and a medical researcher, Dr. Castellano, who told us about the dangers of vaccines. Dr. Castellano shared with us a terrifying list of ingredients that we routinely inject into unsuspecting victims. Victims like baby Francine. These ingredients, most notably thimerosal, have been linked to growing rates of autism in developed countries. In other words, medical advancement that is claiming to save lives is actually injecting its victims with serums that could cause devastating brain disorders. That do cause devastating brain disorders. Think about it. Is this something we want to do to our beautiful, sweet, young children? To our future? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I leave you with this thought. It is no coincidence that the word needless and needles are only distinguished by one small letter. For baby Francine. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard a lot of medical and scientific jargon today, but the bottom line is this: vaccines are safe. The supposed study outlining the connection between vaccines and autism, and to which Dr. Castellano referred to in his testimony, we now know to be false. The numbers were manipulated, the results and data were fabricated, and The Lancet, the magazine that published the study, have since discounted it as entirely false. We have heard no other credible evidence that there is an actual link between any severe illness or injury due to vaccinations. What vaccines have done is given our developed society the peace of mind that our friends and family members will not be taken from us because of a completely preventable disease. Polio, smallpox, measles, mumps, the horrors of these diseases are all in the past thanks to vaccines. Put simply, vaccines have saved millions of lives. The real worry is that people who are choosing not to vaccinate their children are causing an increase in preventable disease. The so-called anti-vaccination movement resulted in the worst measles outbreak in 20 years in California this past January. People need to listen to our doctors and scientists who say all vaccines are safe. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I ask you today to eliminate the theatrics and get to the truth. Our lives depend on it. Thank you.
Okay, so Ms. Sewell and Ms. Bowman, we're here, we're the jury, and we're deliberating about the case we've just heard.
Well, what do you think? The defense put on a pretty good argument.
It's true, but why do all these parents, they don't get the vaccines, and maybe they're onto something? It sounded like the guy said that the autism happens. I kind of believed him. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, but also there's a lot of cases and information saying that we don't have any valid information to prove that there is a direct link between a vaccination and autism.
It's true, and we saw the chart about how all the diseases went down so significantly since the vaccines started. I think we might have to go with the not guilty, because the vaccines really are best for everyone.
My feeling is that it should be
not guilty.
You'll notice that my opponents opened with the heavy dramatics about you have human history, many diseases. Bloopers, because I said a bad word. Okay.
Are you going to make a bloopers reel? You should. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
This part's going to be on it. We're recording. Go. The defense calls Dr. Lahiri.
After 1919.
Wait, hold on.